I saw A Quiet Place Day 1 at my local Alamo Drafthouse, and if you've never been to an Alamo Drafthouse theater before, it's sort of like both a movie theater and a restaurant. They serve food there, and I ordered a pepperoni pizza there. Watching A Quiet Place Day 1, that was definitely not on purpose. Hey movie buffs, I'm Jack Benner, and welcome to my review of A Quiet Place Day 1. A Quiet Place Day 1 is a new prequel / spin-off in the Quiet Place franchise. After John Krasinski directed the first two Quiet Place films, this one has a new director, Michael Sarnowski, behind the camera, and this film stars Lupita Nyong'o and Joseph Quinn. In this prequel to A Quiet Place, taking place in New York City during the early stages of the alien invasion by creatures that can only kill by sound. An ill patient named Sam, played by Lupita Nyong'o, is on a group trip to New York City. When the invasion occurs, she must do everything she can to survive. Now, before I want to get into a review, for those who are coming across my channel for the first time, I am Jack Benner. I do movie reviews on this channel and some lists from time to time. So if you like what you see here, definitely consider hitting that like and subscribe button for more exciting movie content down the road. Now, before we get into day one, I would like to give you my thoughts on the Quiet Place films. Starting with A Quiet Place from 2018. 6 years later, A Quiet Place still holds up excellently as a well-paced, engaging, intense, emotional, gripping, and suspenseful survival horror movie. It knows how to brilliantly utilize its unique concept, brilliant and suspenseful directing from John Krasinski, and fantastic performances from the cast. And 2018 was a banner year for Emily Blunt with this and Mary Poppins Return, which I found delightful. And talking about the most suspenseful scene in the movie, the bathtub scene where she's forced to give birth. Whoa. And it has some of the best sound design out of any movie from 2018, and really cool that it got an Oscar nomination for Best Sound. It is one of my top 10 favorite films of 2018 and would be my second favorite horror movie of 2018 behind Hereditary. So I absolutely love the first Quiet Place film, and I would give it an A. After being delayed a year from 2020 to 2021 due to the global pandemic, A Quiet Place Part 2 has finally hit theaters that year. And Part 2 is an equally riveting continuation that maintains the same suspenseful filmmaking as its predecessor. And there is a particular cross-cutting sequence between two different situations with different characters. That entire sequence had me on the edge of my seat. It expands the world building and continuation in an engaging and fascinating way. Cillian Murphy is a terrific new addition here and gets a great character arc. And also, Cillian Murphy and Emily Blunt pre-Oppenheimer. It's a great horror sequel and my favorite horror film of 2021. Even though I may prefer Part 1 just slightly more, I would still give it the same grade, an A. And you know what one of my least favorite things about the Quiet Place films are? The ending. Not that they're bad endings, but they just end so abruptly, just leaving me wanting more. Every time they get excited, they're building up to something. It was just like, oh my god, what it's building up to? What's gonna happen next? Oh, come on! You gotta end it there. Damn it, I want more! As much as I'm highly anticipating a part 3 in the future, whenever that comes out, I actually did see a lot of potential for a prequel to A Quiet Place. What could you add to the lore or follow a different character's perspective in a different setting? And I was looking forward to seeing if this prequel would do exactly that. Despite that John Krasinski is not directing this prequel, either he was busy with If, which I found one of the more underrated films of the year so far, or he wanted to give someone else a chance behind the camera to see how they will handle this franchise. And I was curious to see how a new director would fill in John Krasinski's shoes. And this is the same director who directed the 2021 film Pig with Nicolas Cage. Haven't seen that film, but heard great things about that. Other than loving the first two films, what was one big selling point for me was Lupita Nyong'o as the lead, who I find to be a stunning actress. I have loved her ever since her Oscar-winning breakthrough role in 12 Years a Slave from 2013, and her performance in that film was incredibly powerful, heartbreaking, tragic, and impactful. And still to this date, I am so happy she won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actress that year, 100% deserving, and she is still to date my favorite Best Supporting Actress winner of the 2010s decade. And if you're looking for another great performance from her in the horror genre, I'd highly recommend you check out Jordan Peele's second film as a director, Us, from 2019. It was an incredible dual and versatile performance as both strong and vulnerable mother and a haunting doppelganger version of herself. And that film she should have been nominated for an Oscar for Best Actress. And I also love her as Nakia in the Black Panther films in the MCU as well. And when I first saw the trailer, I did get excited about this prequel. I was liking the change of pace with the setting in New York City, and that does sound like a brilliant idea. A Quiet Place film set in the noisiest city in the world, New York City. What could we do there? And I was hoping what made the first two Quiet Place films are intact here in this prequel, thus becoming one of my most anticipated films of the summer. I was so excited for this movie, and I saw Quiet Place 1 last week, optimistic, and my review is here. What are my thoughts on A Quiet Place Day 1? While I don't think it's as good as the first two Quiet Place films, I still found A Quiet Place Day 1 to be a solid, intense, and thrilling prequel, and I think it is a worthy addition to this franchise. Let's start with the pros. First, Lupita Nyong'o gives an absolutely fantastic lead performance here, and still to this date, I have never seen her give a bad or mediocre performance. She successfully brings nuance and emotion to a new protagonist in this franchise whom you sympathize with and want to see her survive. And she does an excellent job carrying the emotional weight of the film, further proving to be a fantastic actress. And Joseph Quinn, Eddie from Stranger Things, also gives a great performance. He plays a law student named Eric who Sam forms an unlikely friendship with to try to survive. With that developing friendship between the two, that's the emotional core of the film. And I thought he made for a great counterpart to Lupita Nyong'o's character. And if you liked him as Eddie in Stranger Things and in this movie, and if you're excited to see Joseph Quinn in more movies after this, you're in luck, because he is booked. Not only with this movie this year, but this November, he has a supporting role in Gladiator 2, which I am getting more excited for. And particularly next year, he is going to be the new Johnny Storm, aka the Human Torch, in the MCU Fantastic Four. After watching this movie, I can't wait to see how he does as the Human Torch next year. Kevin Feige, please don't screw it up. You got one more chance. Just make this Fantastic Four in the MCU good, please. And a standout here, Frodo the cat, Sam's animal companion here. I love cats. Frodo is great here. And we also got another good supporting performance here from Alex Wolff, who I thought was great in Hereditary, and he plays Sam's caretaker in the film. And I thought he did a good job with the limited screen time he had. After being skeptical about John Krasinski not directing, but I was willing to give Michael Sarnowski a chance to see how he would do behind the camera for a new Quiet Place film. And for my first impressions, he did a pretty great job. He does a great job handling the scope without feeling like just copying John Krasinski or feeling out of his depth. And this film is actually the highest budget out of the three Quiet Place films. And watching this movie, I can definitely see why this film has the biggest budget, and the effects and spectacle are all top notch here. He does an amazing job with camera work, either following a character around or keep the camera going. And there's also terrific cinematography here that is well framed and shots I remember. And he also crafts thrilling action set pieces that put you on the edge of your seat, and knowing how to utilize this setting, doing a great job building up tension and suspense, just knowing what's about to happen when the invasion about to start. And when it does start, I was in it. It was exciting. And I find the Quiet Place creatures to be some of the most terrifying movie monsters in a long time. Just the thought of them, these creatures that can only kill you by hearing, just trying not to make the slightest sound, that's terrifying to me. I just don't want to be anywhere near them. And this prequel still shows these monsters as an imposing threat that it's almost kind of overwhelming to how scary they are. And one of my favorite aspects about both Quiet Place movies is how they balance tension and emotion with characters you care about. And Day One does do exactly that here, keeping that strong balance intact. I love the new setting of New York City, which I found to be a brilliant idea for a prequel as an opportunity for a riveting new entry. And some sequences I found to be huge highlights here. One, when the invasion starts, that was incredible. And there was also another sequence I loved taking place in an underground subway that was also very intense. And the emotional core of the film is still strong, giving us two leads, Sam and Eric, to care about them, develop them. And there's even one scene where they're both in an apartment, their conversation, and the acting for both Lupita Nyong'o and Joseph Quinn, that was terrific. And the sound design here, still amazing. 3 films in, it always feels effective without feeling gimmicky or stale. And there's even one great scene where Sam is in a crowd and the sound you hear, just hundreds of footsteps by many New York civilians, and the sounds of those footsteps just build up this feeling of dread increasingly. And you remember in the first 2 films how the Abbott family always walk on sand trails barefoot, And knowing that and that sound design building up tension, I was like, these creatures are gonna attack any moment. They're coming. There they are. Sadly, I do have some problems with this movie. I will get to those right now. First, what I found to be an underwhelming issue for me about this prequel was I felt like this prequel didn't brought a whole lot to the franchise as much as I was hoping for. In terms of expanding the lore or world building, mostly relying on our knowledge of the first two films if we've seen them, there wasn't a whole lot of surprises here. And how they were able to do the survival tactics pretty quickly by not making any sound, it did kind of feel a little rushed. I was like, okay, they figured that out pretty quickly on not to make any noise. And I did feel like there was a whole lot more to be desired. In terms of suspense or emotion, I feel like it doesn't reach the same heights as its two predecessors, not quite as strong as those movies. And third, Djimon Hounsou is still underutilized here. It's such a shame that this and part 2 have been underusing a phenomenal actor like Djimon Hounsou. Have you seen Blood Diamond? He was incredible in that movie. And they barely give him anything to do. Thought he would be an important character in the first half of this movie, but then he disappears until the third act of this movie when the film almost comes to a close. And I can kind of see a connection between him and part 2, but there was also another part of me that felt like, honestly, he could have been played by anybody. To sum up, while I was hoping for something a little more by expanding the lore and world building, I did find A Quiet Place Day 1 to be an intense, thrilling, and suspenseful prequel that is a worthy addition to the Quiet Place franchise. Great direction, riveting sequences, and two fantastic performances from both Lupita Nyong'o and Joseph Quinn. I would definitely recommend this movie to you if you're fans of the Quiet Place films, if you love the first two films, or if you're looking for a good horror movie to go see at the movies this summer, you got it here. Even if you weren't a fan of the first two Quiet Place films, and if you're curious to see about this one, I don't know if it'll change your mind, but I do think you should give it a chance. I am interested to hear your thoughts on this film. Either you found this film to be the weakest of the franchise, or if you were a bit underwhelmed by it, or if you actually really liked this film and found it to be one of the best films in the franchise. Definitely share your thoughts down below in the comments. I'm interested to hear. I am still eagerly awaiting a part 3 in the future, whenever that comes out. I really hope we get a release date soon. But if they do plan to do another spin-off film like this in the future, I would definitely be interested in it as long as it sounds both promising and has a good cast involved. And now to grade it, I'm going to give A Quiet Place Day 1 3.5 stars out of 5, a B. Even if I didn't love it as much as I wanted to, I still came out of this movie satisfied and enjoyed it. So 2024 is looking up to be a good year for horror so far. I would still say my favorite horror film of the year so far is Abigail, which came out on Blu-ray recently. Fun vampire movie, check that out. And two horror movies coming out that I'm excited for. One, Alien Romulus this August. That looks awesome. And my most anticipated film for the rest of the year, Nosferatu from Robert Eggers. That looks incredible. I can't freaking wait for that. So I'd like to hear from you guys. What do you guys think of A Quiet Place Day 1? Have you seen it? Do you agree? Disagree with my review? Or if you haven't seen it, are you interested in seeing the film or not? Let me know down below. Did you enjoy hearing my thoughts on this movie and want to see more reviews like this in the future? If yes, please hit that like and subscribe button if you're new here, and don't forget that notification bell for my next upload in the future. It really means a lot. All my social media links are in the description down below. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And if you want to see more of my written reviews, I do have a Letterboxd account as well, so if you'd like to follow me on there as well. And until the next video, I'm Jack Benner, and look forward to another movie review.